design fiction and speculative design are really important practices. I think it's just 10 years ago, 8 years ago, I was very excited. There was a lot of excitement worldwide, I think, around these fields and seeing design in a new way and seeing really a political, critical side of design. And for me personally, just coming out of the Trump election and Brexit situation, that changed everything and made it, for me, much more important to see things that had tangible immediacy to them. Not speculating on this kind of fantasy 50 years off, or not also, I think, having a kind of open-ended and meandering approach to thinking about the future, but it became very important to think about the immediate future and how to react to that now. In my work, I bring definitely speculative approaches together with material approaches. So for me, it's very important in my own practice, I always begin with some question. It's a kind of research question. So it might be, in the case with my project Stranger Visions, the question was, what can I learn about a stranger from a hair? And then the work becomes this attempt, in a way, to answer that question. It doesn't have to have an answer, but it might be a process of experimentation, exploration, that leads you through what an answer to that question might be or might become. And then the artwork becomes kind of the artifacts of that process, or some way of inviting the audience into the question and into the process of answering it. I think when people see my work, they don't know how real it is, and I think it becomes an interesting meditation on what real means. So yes, I really picked up cigarette butts and chewing gum. I really brought them to a lab. I really extracted DNA, and amplified it, analyzed it, worked with the scientists there to think about how one would create a genetic profile from a forensic artifact. And then, yes, I really put that together with machine learning models and these morphable models of the face to generate possible faces based on the genetic profile. And I used my artistic subjectivity every step of the way, but in particular at the end, because you can generate countless different versions of a face based on the probabilities inherent in DNA. And I make that clear in the work I did with Chelsea Manning, where I show 30 versions of her that are really very different based on the same DNA profile. But in the first work with Stranger Visions, I would generate 5, 6 different versions of a person's face from their DNA, and then look for the one that spoke to me, that made me feel something, or reminded me of someone, that had something to it. And that was totally this gut artistic judgment. The really interesting thing, I think, is, so I started that in 2012, and I thought, this is an emerging technology. I see traces in the literature that this is coming, but I think it won't really be there for another 5 years. That was my guess. And then just 2 years later, a company launched selling this as a service to police in the United States. And that, I think, complicates this question of what real means, because it is something more real when a company offers it as a service to police than when an artist does it. Is it more real just because it's out there, utilized, instrumentalized in the world? The whole situation of that, so that led me then to redirect my efforts into not just calling attention to the risks of the body, the vulnerabilities to surveillance, but the limitations and biases in the tools that we use as well. So the forensic DNA phenotyping, this effort to create a picture of someone from nothing more than DNA, to call attention to the limitations of that tool, as well as the social implications, the surveillance implications.